The story of Britain's behind-the-scenes conspiracy with the Zionist elements and betrayal of the Palestinian Muslims tells the reality of the Zionist occupation of Palestine. This picture clearly shows how the British used conspiracy against the Palestinians and how rapidly the Jews came in the land of Palestine. Before forming the group called Zionist thinkers were thinking of creating a homeland for the Jewish people since the 17th century. These people, including famous figures like Isaac Newton and Jean-Jacques Rousseau, encouraged Jews to immigrate to Palestine. In the mid-19th century, someone like Moshe Montefiore began buying land in Palestine, but the trend was individual. With the establishment of the Zionist movement in 1897, this idea began to be put into practice at the movement's first conference in Basel, Switzerland. 20 years after the first Zionist conference, England produced an official document for the Jews that became the basis of the Zionist government. This official document was called the Balfour Declaration. In this declaration, England formally promised to help create a national homeland for the Jews. This document exposed England's secret operations. 3 years later, the British intrigued in the region, enlisting the services of some power-hungry Arabs and turning them against the Ottoman government. In 1919, although England signed the Sykes-Picot Agreement with France to partition the region, it abandoned France along the way and introduced itself to the League of Nations as the protector of Palestine. Britain had been the protectorate of Palestine since 1920. Historical evidence from the period of British presence in Palestine shows that the existence of the British government was a pretext for the establishment of the Zionist government. Throughout the British presence, the Palestinians were suppressed and many concessions were made to the Zionists. The increase in Jewish immigration and the concessions given to Jews by the British led to many popular uprisings and protests in which great leaders like Syed Kazim al-Husseini, Al-Hajj Amin al-Husseini, Abdul Qadir al-Husseini and Sheikh Izzuddin Qasim were martyred. The land on which the Jewish minority lived was 65,000 hectares. In this context, the Freemason movement in Palestine, which was led by the Turkish government, included a part of these 65,000 hectares in the lands purchased by the Mason movement. One of these buyers was Sayyid Zia al-Din Tabatabai, the mastermind of the August 28, 1332 revolt in Iran, who bought land from Palestinians who did not sell land to the Jews, and transferred the land to the Jews. The government that Britain established in Palestine gave 66.5 thousand hectares of land to the Zionist movement. These lands were government lands and buildings that were considered government property from the Ottoman era and were to be provided to the future Palestinian government. Before British occupation, Palestine was part of the Ottoman Empire, which included Syria, Lebanon, Jordan, Palestine, Turkey and part of Iraq. Landlords and wealthy landowners who did not belong to Palestine and had no national identity. They settled anywhere in search of wealth and property. On the other hand, after the partition of the Ottoman Empire, the lands of many of these feudal lords were placed in such borders that were beyond their reach. So they sold these lands cheaply after attractive offers from Jewish institutions and Zionist elements. Thus, the Zionists acquired 60.6 thousand hectares of land. One way of occupying Palestinian lands was to buy them from the Palestinians themselves who, for various reasons, openly sold their land to the Zionists. These people were considered traitors in Palestine, and many of them were executed by the Palestinian people. The Zionists bought 30,000 hectares of land in this way. That is, the Palestinians sold only 30,000. Or 1.8%, of the total 2.7 million hectares of Palestinian land to Jews. In total, about 220,000 hectares of Palestinian land were included in the lands purchased through the above-mentioned four methods. The total area of Palestine is 2.7 million hectares, which is about 8% of Palestine. In the book, Land Selling, Rumor or Fact, this figure is mentioned with a slight difference of about 6% of the whole of Palestine. when Great Britain was introduced by the League of Nations as the guardian of Palestine. The document written for this guardianship required it to provide the conditions for the establishment of an independent state for the Palestinians within 10 years. Since the conditions for the establishment of statehood and autonomy for the Palestinians had not been provided after the First World War and the end of the Ottoman Empire, the League of Nations obliged England to provide these conditions within a period of 10 years. Do it. But the British, as they had promised the Jews in the Balfour Declaration, made the League of Nations document the sole source of governance and prepared the conditions for the establishment of a Jewish homeland during 28 years of occupation. When the Zionists decided to establish a fake government in Palestine. In a coordinated action, the British left Palestine with their ships at night and provided all facilities to the Zionists. The British who came to Palestine with military uniforms, and the British governor in Palestine was a military commander. Yet they did not take their weapons and war equipment with them and left everything for the Zionists. Ever since the Zionists officially declared the fake Zionist government, a new process of acquiring the remaining Palestinian land began. Killing and looting was the method adopted by the Zionists. Due to mass killings, millions of Palestinians were forced to leave their lands and seek refuge in other places in fear of their lives. The consequences of the war are always threatening to every person in the world. What are your opinions after listening? Do like, comment, and also subscribe to my channel for more informative videos. Let us make the world a peaceful place to live.